Okay, let's start. Date 11 June 2024. Time is this. So we are understanding Angular data binding. We have talked about string interpolation. We have talked about string interpolation and property binding. When you say property binding, we create our own custom properties, DT and ST. The way input is having type property. In the same fashion, this is your app bar. Your own component can have its own properties like DT and ST. Okay. Syntax is this: a rectangular bracket. Custom properties are represented in a rectangular bracket, and we pass the variables to these properties. Things to note: add input to this date, add input to this ST, which specifies that this is the property binding. Okay, when you talk about the data binding.
So,
Yeah.
For property binding, add input is a must.
Yeah, custom property. If you want to create your own component and the custom property, add input is mandatory.
Okay.
Right? Add input is mandatory. So when you say add input, this would be working as a property of your component. App bar, it is having its own property called as DT. So we talked about interpolation. This part, interpolation is represented by the double curly braces. Inside that we can write JavaScript or whatever your code is. Then we need to talk about something called as event binding. This thing, event binding. Okay, what do you mean by event binding? That we will see today. So here only I will rename 50 or 51, right? Day 51. Now we have created a few components and we have mapped them, but nowhere there is a button click listener and other things, right? Nowhere there is a button click listener. Now let's create one component. Okay, today I will use the syntax. Okay, React app is running. Just a minute, let me come out of this React app. Web dev Angular cd day 5051 nvm use 18 and npm start. It is run. What's that? Any other folder? Component features. Okay, npm start 4200. Right, this was the case we have created yesterday. Now let's create one more component, and today I will use the Angular CLI NGGC, and I want to create a new component called as calculator, calc, and hit the enter. So calc component have been created. I don't need this spec file right now. The TS file, okay. This HTML, okay. Right? Now here, let's create the UI. First, div, and here we can say input type text, placeholder num1. Okay, let's have the classes. We can use a bootstrap also, no problem. But .cls or .flex, we can say display flex instead of the container, display flex. And what display flex class. So in a property binding you can write in this way also, class dot container is equals to true. This is also one way of creating this. So you have a class here, name it as container, and you want to apply it. Let's forget about this right now, don't worry about it. I'm going to come back in different way. So here we can say class container, input type this num2, and there would be input type button. Now there would be 4 buttons. Placeholder add, let me wrap it in a div, input type button add, subtract, division, and multiplication. Okay, so here we can say style dot display, you can say flex. Deliberately I am using different things. One more style we can apply, style dot flex direction. No, not needed flex direction, that's it. So here I have applied same thing, flex and flex direction column. Either you can create a class or you can do something like this, that is also okay. Okay, why Angular app is not running? Run the app, npm start.
What is that placeholder?
Ghost text, do you remember this or not? Ghost text. Okay, so these are the buttons. So here I wanna style font size. Tell me the property. I want to increase the font of this font size, correct? 2em. I hope you remember font size dot em also we can write. Oh, okay, style font size em here and 2em. Okay, why it is not showing? I think we didn't add it. Okay, below this let's have one, below this let's have one more section. Inside the section, first we need to import that component in the app component, calc component, import it, app component, app calc. You see num1, num2 and your buttons, they are way bigger. Align items center. Okay, num1, num2 like this. And here we can apply, you can create the class, also big button, or if you want to apply style dot font size is equals to 2em. Deliberately I am using lengthy approach so that you should get to know how things are working. Okay, placeholder not, here we need to have a value, we need to change this thing with value. Okay, add substring and something like this. Event handling. Help me with the code. I want to apply some margin. The container we have, margin top 3 em. Okay, and container, inside container, whatever elements are there, all them should have margin top, 0.5 em. Okay, little margin, we got a little margin here also. And what we have, this div in container, if there is a div dot container, dot container, inside that there is a div, and inside that if there is any element, say margin left, we can say 0.5 em. Okay, nth, okay, I need, fine, presently let's make a star. I'm worrying about this guy. Oh, this is a, what is this? This is a flex. This guy is a flex. Display flex. Let's remove this thing. And we have dedicated property in a flex style dot justify content space between. Okay, let's not invest time on this thing. We need to margin top, this div, this is that div. No, I'm worrying about this div, element style flex, and here we can add justify content space between. Okay, we can do that. Let's not invest time on this. We need to understand. So just refresh it, and here num1 and num2. If I input type, here we can say number, and this is also number. So if I write something over here, and if I click add, addition of this thing should be displayed. Addition of this thing should be displayed in this h1. In this h1 result over here. I want to display addition of this over here. Now, yesterday we have seen this is the property binding. This is the property binding, right? You are giving something to the element. Remember that what you are doing? You are, if this is the element, you are giving something to the element, property binding. Now you want to read something from the element. Element is firing some event, and you need to receive that event. that is the event binding. Bind with the element events. And how to do that thing? So if you see, for every button, Angular, for particular elements, Angular has given the specific events. Like to the button, that's the click event. Okay, so we are in a calc component dot ts. Let's open the calc. Are you there? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. So on addition, on addition, on sub, on add, on sub, on multiplication, on division. Now these events, so whenever the click event of this button is going to be triggered, this function I need to call. So here you can assign that function. So you are saying whenever the click event is triggered, kindly call this function. Similarly, when subtraction button is going to be called, please call this on sub function. This is the syntax, round brackets for the event handling. On div, sorry, on div. This is what div. And click on multiplication. Let's give a console. Let's give a console. Let's give a console, and here I can say console dot log event triggered. So here we can say add. Here we can say subtraction. Here we can say multiplication. Here we can say division. And format the document. Okay. And let us see, are we getting the consoles or not first? Inspect it. Console, add, subtraction, division, multiplication. Add, sub, div, mul. So these things are happening correctly. Can you see? You have
Yes.
you have received the click. Whenever you click on the button, this function gets called, and this thing is called as event binding. You have bound with which event? Click event of the button.
Okay.
Okay. Now next thing, what you need to do, we have this input, right? We have these two inputs, and we want to get these things. There are multiple ways, because we need to perform the calculation. We need to perform what? Calculation. So there is something called as change event. And here we can say on num1 change, on num1 change, and here you can say on num2 change. So here also we can add on num1 change and on num2 change. Let's try console.log num1, and here we can say num2. Inspect it, no, sorry, console it, and can you see change event is working? Whenever the trigger, whenever your cursor is going, or whenever cursor is changing, that's what the change is. From one input, this thing is there. So you can, which means that whenever you change from this to this, event will trigger. Whenever you change from this to this, event will trigger. And there should be change, and this to this, event will trigger. See now, 444 num2 4 num1. So whenever you come from this to this, event will change. But I want that data to be here. I want that whenever you change, it gives you an event object also, right? So here we can say Angular 18 change event input change event input change event type. I need a type of that change. We need the type. Can you see here what I'm trying to search? We need to write the type of which event. So there is a specific event gets triggered, and I'm trying to find out that event.
You mean change or click?
Change or what? Change what?
Click.
Which event? Click event is there, mouse event is there.
Change or click.
Huh.
You are searching.
Yes.
Means whenever there is a change event,
Uh-huh.
That time this event should be.
Whenever you, just a minute, I will explain. So here we can just write event, that is correct, is of type event. And then actually once we learn the form, this is much easy. Presently you don't know the form, and we need to do all the things. Event dot target dot value. You need an input box value, correct? So you need to assign element is equals to this e dot target. In Angular we need to do these things. This e dot target as you need to convert or typecast it to the HTML input element. Then this IP, we can say IP dot value. IP dot value. Same thing we need to do here. IP dot value. Let's go here and refresh it. Now say 12. The minute I change from this input box to this input box, it is printing num1. Console.log val IP value is y. Num1 it is printing, but not this, any error. Yeah, so here we need to pass the dollar event. So this is the Angular's built-in variable which captures the actual event value. Now here if I say 12, and if I can say IP value is 12. So dollar event I was missing. If you see here, so dollar event is a built-in Angular variable. Whenever event gets fired, actual event data is getting stored in this dollar event. Actual event data means what? This data. Who is the target element, when that event has been triggered, what was the time at the event has been triggered. So all those things are captured in this event object. And in a template, Angular template, if you want to refer the event object, that should be the dollar event. You got it? So this is a built-in variable. You cannot change the name or anything. So if you want to target the actual event object triggered by this change event, that is in the 12, that is in this dollar event. Now I got this thing. So what we can do, const, we can create one object, const IP, or here we can say IP is equals to num1 colon 0, num2 colon 0. Okay, so here I can set IP dot IP obj, ob, here we can say IP ob. This dot IP ob dot num1 is equals to this IP dot value. Yeah, now if you see, whenever you get the actual value out of this box, it is in the string form. You need to convert it to the integer. So here parse int method is there, which will convert it to the int. Same thing we need to do, IP dot value, but here it should be num2. Okay, now we have a result over here, and here we can say result is 0 in the beginning. And now I wanna access this IP obj dot result. Here we can say IP ob dot result, res in the beginning, result is 0. Now in the addition, what you need to do, IP ob dot result is equals to IP ob dot num1 plus IP ob dot num2. This you want to do in an add, this you want to do in a subtract, this would be in a multiplication, this is under the division. Let's add 12. So 12 has been assigned. 34 has been assigned. Click on the add, you will get the 46. Subtraction minus 22, division something like this, and the multiplication is 408. Okay, and if you see, the only thing over here we have learnt is the event handling, this part and the dollar event. Rest of the thing is a pure JavaScript logic. So what you have differently implemented over here, how to capture the input element event, that is the click event. This is a built-in event. How to capture the number, or whenever cursor goes off the input box, how to capture that event, the change event, right? And the dollar event over here is the default event object that you get from the Angular, right? And rest of the things are pretty standard. Yeah, you were asking something.
Why don't we use this dollar event in case of buttons?
because we don't need the button event. Event object we don't need at the at this time, right? We just need to get the trigger that button has been clicked. But button has been clicked and that event details, if you need it, you will use $event. You need the details on which input box event has been generated. You need that detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to extract the value that you have typed in.
Okay.
But here there is no case in such like that. Here we just need to get the trigger, but not the event details. Event details are given to you by $event, right? And whatever I have said, that things are, can you see here, my click message is equals to $event. They have written over here. Okay, so I will push this much code, and here we can say Angular event binding, and this is the calculator program. Now homework to you is that you are going to create the grid using Bootstrap. This is the exact UI you will create like this in Angular, something like this. If you click over here, the number should be exact like calculator. Calc, this thing, this UI you need to develop. If I said 12 plus 63 is equals to 75. So same thing you need to develop in Angular. You can use Bootstrap or you cannot use Bootstrap. That's up to you. I have pushed the code, go through it, and you can ask me the questions. Yeah.
In the TS file of cell component,
Mm-hmm.
we use IPOBG.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of that, you can directly use the variables as well.
Yeah, we can use the variables as well, separate variables.
Right? event you used, it actually send
Event object.
it it actually send the change as a event name, or the I mean
Yes.
the text box on which
See here. Console.log e. Let's print that e. Inspect console 1 2 3. Let's change it. Can you see it gives you all the details? Source element, target. Can you see when you say target, you'll get actual input box. So we have done this thing in the form handling. If you type e.target and if you type it, you will actually get the input element. Actual, you will get where I have written it now. Okay, in second event box I have written. Now can you see this actual input box? Actual input box you will get e.target, what it will return? Actual input box. And this is the whole event object. That is, it is getting triggered on this source element. The target is this, timestamp is this, and type is change, right? So all the event details are captured in this E. That's what the event object.
and e.target will give us what?
E.target is used to get the actual this box. Actual this box. It will give you, can you see e.target is this input box. So if you got the input box, you can have dot value.
Okay.
And that's why this is a bad practice. Capturing the event like this is a bad practice. So what is a good thing, we will see later on. Event handling. There are a lot of other events available which you can try with. Any other questions?
You said like here we want to get the value from that book, the text box. That's why we use the event. Right?
Yeah. This event gives you actual this object. Details of the event. This line will give you, just tell you that event has been fired. Event has been triggered and I'm calling this function. This line is telling you event has been triggered and I'm calling this function. Nothing else. But I want details of the event. Why event has been triggered, which input, which element, what was the timestamp, all that things that are captured in the dollar event.
And ultimately, we also want the value of both the details.
Correct.
All the details we get from the event.
Correct. You can write dollar event here also, no problem. But there is no purpose in this case.
Correct. Yeah.
Cleared?
Yes.
Event binding. So this thing we have worked with. I can cover two-way binding also, but it would be little much too much for you now.
So this event binding is now one way.
This is the one way. We'll talk about what do you mean by two way. And what is the one way at the time of I will explain you. No, I think we have discussed over here. Yeah, from the element to your TypeScript. Now we need to have a two-way also. Read the event, write the event. We'll see that.
So, what was that PB? Written? And PB and EB in the
It's the
diagram?
event binding and the property binding.
Okay, property binding means you are giving something to the
Element.
element. Now here, element is event binding. In case of event binding, your element is button and text box, right?
Correct.
Right. Fine.
So practice this much. You can practice today and you can ask me questions tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay, let me stop the recording.